Well, hello there, and welcome to this newsletter for the 1st of March. Can you believe we're already 1/6 of the way through 2024? That's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay, we are shifting into a brand new season that is going to be happening. Spring. Yeah, we are moving into spring. We're doing lots of spring things in the Good Food and You world, in the Good Food Network, and a lot of other places with clients and all sorts of things. Hi, welcome to Land in Your Inbox, as I usually do here on the 1st of the month, with a heads up of what is happening here in the month ahead. And the reason I do these is because I suspect you will want to know about some of the content of some of these classes, because that's what I do. I offer support to help you figure out how nutrition can be of service based on what it is your main health concern. So I want you to take a second, and I want you to give yourself all of 20 seconds, maybe, jot down on a piece of paper, what are those top 3 things health-wise that are bothering you? What are those top 3 things that are either symptoms that you want to address? Maybe they are conditions that you've been diagnosed with, or maybe it's in relation to how to feed yourself or how to feed your family. It could potentially also be about an organ you want to look after. For example, if you have a family history of something, what would be the top 3 things that you would like to address using nutrition? If you need to pause this video, please do. Jot yourself 3 things down. What are the top 3 things, health-wise, that are bothering you? Go ahead. Okay. So now that you've got your top 3 things, the work that I do with clients, just to give you a roundabout way around this, the work I do with clients is the same for each person, but we come at it a different way for each person. They pretty much, everybody gets the same instructions and recommendations along the way. We just do it in a different order. And maybe not necessarily everyone will get, for example, adding in seaweed. A lot of them. Everyone will get to work on breakfast and so on and so forth. So I want you to know that when it comes to nutrition, all of the content and the information that I share here in the newsletter, on my YouTube channel, in my social media posts, in the Good Food Network and the classes that I offer, all of them are all about addressing one thing: how nutrition can serve you to keep chronic disease at bay. That's what I do. That's what I do predominantly. And to keep chronic disease at bay, whether it's already set up shop, slow down the progression is the goal, stop it altogether, and nourish you deeply so your biochemistry works and we can support the body so that she, he, they can do the repair they need to and rewrite themselves. Your body's always aiming to go towards center. That homeostasis is the word. It's a big word. Yeah. And homeostasis is one of those important things to reach for. Nutrition can do a bang up job of helping you get there. And so every time I offer any class, any course, the recommendations start to echo and be a lot of the same things, because the work to keep a body working well and keep chronic disease at bay is the same for everybody. The main tenets, I will tell you, are eat real food. Jot this down. You're not going to need to jot it down. I'm being funny. Eat real food. Reduce your reliance on packaged foods and ingredients you can't pronounce. Work at sleep. Make connections with others. Oh, always look after your gut. And move and groove on the daily. Those are 6 big pillars. Move and groove on the daily. Can I do them backwards? Let's see. This is a good experiment for my brain. Move and groove on the daily. Get together with others. Look after your gut. Work at sleep. Reduce how much you're relying on packaged foods and eat real food. And if you don't know where to start with that, I have entry levels for everything. So what you do is that you say, okay, I want to address these 3 topics, these 3 main things that are bothering me. Like, I don't know how to cook for my family. I have a growing brood of 5 children, and I want them to be well and to function well in school and to have what they need, because someday I want grandchildren. Okay, that's an awesome one. Or I have a family history of heart attacks, and I don't want to have heart attacks. My cholesterol seems to be rising. Okay, well, we have 2 things there: family history, elevating cholesterol. Let's address both of those, right? And so on and so forth. When you don't know what to do, or when you feel like, geez, it's all so confusing, I don't know what to choose, where to go, which direction to take, I want you to reach out, book in for a free chat with me. That's always going to be the first stop. And in that free chat, we'll talk about what are those top things that bother you. And what's the price point? Do you want free stuff? Do you want $5 stuff? Do you want $40 stuff? Do you want $70 stuff? Or do you want $600 stuff? You get to choose, and I'll put it all on the table. I don't force feed you anything. And you choose, and then you do it on your end. I don't even do it for you. Yeah, because then it's not yours. I want it to be yours, and I want it to be at some point that you're going to fire me. That's the goal. So on that note, I want to tell you what we're doing in the month, and a bit more late, in the month of March here at the Good Food Network. We have just wrapped up 2 months of talking about the brain and the nervous system. The month of February was really concentrating on how to keep those degenerative conditions and cognitive decline at bay. So we've done a lot of really good work there and got into some nitty-gritty and some different nutrients and different things that I've never talked about before. And now we're going to shift directions. And we're still in the same vein, because remember, everything here is about reducing what drives chronic disease. We're going to go back to the brass tacks. We're going back to the beginning. What is at the root? Oh yeah, inflammation. Is inflammation bad? No. Inflammation is not bad. My bangs are at the stage where I need to cut them, obviously. A little bit having an issue with them today. Anyway, what is inflammation bad? So many people keep talking about how inflammation is terrible. Inflammation, to clarify, is your body's response to do repair where the body perceives there's an issue. So do I want you to stop doing repair? No. Do I want to turn off inflammation? I don't want to turn it off. I want to make it so you don't have to turn it on, actually. And there's a really big distinction in between the two, right? And that's the work we're going to be doing over the month of March. We're going to be talking, we're going to take a step away from inflammation and look at what shows up in the body so that inflammation sets in. So inflammation is a really narrow look at a very select few things, and it doesn't make that much sense to a regular layman. It does to a nutrition person, but I love nutrition, and I even think it's way too restrictive. And I don't like restriction. I really like bring as wide as you can. That's another big tenet of mine. Diversity, variety, calm down, bring it out, take a bigger step back, and just make it work. So what we're going to do for the month of March is talk about the burden of stress. And I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what I mean by the burden of stress. The stress response in the body is what drives all of those other things that raise your inflammation in the body. Now, there's 3 kinds of stress. One of them we don't have that much control over. That's the external stress. This is how I usually describe it. External stress is stuff you can't control. Like, do I have a job on Monday? Well, you're not the one in charge at the company, so you don't know if you have a job on Monday. Can't control that. Super high stress, mortgage payments, all of the other things that comes with that. Can we provide for our family? Like, my retirement fund, what's going to happen to that? Like, all of the implications of that. Yeah. But I would add to that external stress, like things like the pesticide they're putting down at the park. I keep writing to my member of parliament, my local people here in Calgary, and I say, could you stop spraying pesticides? Here's all the evidence of how it drives chronic disease and cancer. Like, I don't want that where the kids are playing down at the park. Could we please stop spraying the park? And I've done all I can, but they're still spraying at the park. And until we change policies, it's not much I can do. So going to bless it and get on with it, did what I could and put it in a bow, put it in a box, put a bow on it, and like cross my fingers that other people do it too. And someday, we will not be profit-driven society. I dream big, people. Yeah, it's a philosophical rant today. So that's the external stress. Now, there's also internal stress. We'll come back to in a second. There's also emotional stress. So when I'm talking about emotional stress, I mean anything that has to do with relationships. So here we're thinking about relationships between family members, elders, children, partners, estranged family. Also talking about relationships between coworkers, maybe. So, for example, do you have an elder in your care who needs extra TLC these days, or support to get to appointments, or supports to get Yeah, like I'm in the sandwich generation right now, where a lot of my friends and I are talking about like how do we support our parents in this transition to living in assisted care. So that's one of the ways. What about if you have a neurodivergent child that has special needs that you have to get to appointments? What if you yourself have to do a lot of appointments for mental health support? What about living in a war-torn country? Oh God, how are all of our friends who are in war-torn places doing? Friends, right? Like, what about intergenerational trauma? The role that that can play. All of these scenarios all trip the stress response in the body. And every time you trip that stress response, you're turning on what drives inflammation. Mhm. So I don't want to reduce your inflammation. Well, yeah, I want to reduce it, but I don't want to stop your body from making that inflammatory response and mounting it because it means she's tending to what the problem is. I want to make it so she doesn't have a problem. I want to make it so she feels safe. I want to build a safety net for your body. And the way that we do it here at Good Food and You is by addressing the internal stress. That's where nutrition is amazing. Nutrition with that internal stress piece, we nourish to give all of the nutrients you need to get through the stress response so you can turn it off. We want you to be able to turn it off because if you don't have enough nutrients, that stress response stays on and now drives inflammation. We also want to work at things like balancing your blood sugars. When you work at balancing your blood sugars, your body now feels safe. When your body feels safe, now you turn off the stress response. Yeah, I liken it to getting you off the roller coaster of blood sugar balance stuff and getting you on the carousel instead. We can also look at this from a point of view of histamine and mast cell issues, mast cell mediated issues. So mast cells are part of your immune system. They release histamine. It's a big part of what I do in my work. When you have histamine or mast cell issues, the body doesn't feel safe. When the body doesn't feel safe, she releases histamine. Why is your body always releasing histamine? What biochemically is not working in the body? And what can we nourish? What can we enhance? What can we support in order to better bring it back online to do the work it is that she wants? That's the brilliance of holistic nutrition. We look at the internal stress. I will give you handouts for the emotional stress piece. I will give you a list of things that might help to reset that nervous system piece. I will connect you with trusted practitioners that can help with the mental health piece. I will give you solutions with the Gupta program, for example. And I've got lots of resources, but I source that out to others because that's outside of my scope. Are you going to have a job on Monday in the pesticide question? Like, I think that's a community piece, and let's work at the community piece. And I'm doing that on my own time, and I invite you to join me when we do these pieces as humans. I think it's what it takes to be human right now. But here at Good Food and You, we do the internal burden of stress. And that's what we're addressing in the month of March in the Good Food Network. All right, now I want to get into how to know the top 10 ways on how to know if your body is struggling with a high burden of stress. Now, I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and for each of these that you say yes to, I want you to put a check mark. And then let's see how many you get at the end of this conversation. I'll try to keep it brief, but known to ramble. Number 1, do you feel stress keenly? Do you feel like the walls between you and the world are very thin and it sort of feels like the world is happening right here? Do you feel stress keenly? Do you jump whenever someone comes into the room? Do you feel a bit brittle? Do any of those resonate? Put a check mark. Are you the person who is sensitive, where you react to things a little bit more than the regular person? I would also say this could be somebody who identifies as an empath. Do you feel all the feels of the world? Do you react long before others do? Put another check mark. Number 3, do you struggle with a chronic disease? Some of those big ones. Do you have an autoimmune condition? Do you struggle with histamine or mast cell activation? Put a check mark for each of those, actually. I put them all in one category. But when you have a chronic disease, your burden of stress goes up. Chronic disease triggers inflammatory reactions in the body. The biochemistry will turn that on to try to fix it. Number 4, jumping ahead. Do or have you ever had a chronic infection. You can also think of this as a stealth infection. So I'm going to name some here. Have you ever had food poisoning? Put a check mark. Have you ever had Epstein-Barr virus, the kissing disease? Remember that one? Put another one. Have you ever had Lyme or Bartonella? What about SIBO? Have you ever been diagnosed with SIBO? What about long COVID? Do you struggle with symptoms long after being hit with that big old virus? That was everyone's favorite word for a couple of years there. Put a check mark for each of these. Honey, you have a high burden of stress. Number 5, is sleep not working how it should? You have a high burden of stress. Number 6, do you have low energy, or do you find yourself tired often? Do you need a nap mid-afternoon? And this could translate to, I think of it this way, where your resiliency is low. Like you can't get through tasks. You have a hard time seeing something through. Your ability to move through something feels like, oh my God, I'm dragging my feet. It's really hard. Yeah. Is that you? Put a yes. That's another check mark. Number 7, do you struggle with mood? Do you have worries? Do you have anxiety? Are you the person who's jumpy when someone comes into the room behind you? Oh my God, that is forever going to be me. That's a sign of a nervous system that is hardwired to react sooner, which tells me your burden of stress is pretty high. Number 8, do you have thyroid troubles, Hashimoto's, hypothyroiditis, hyperthyroiditis, Graves'? Do you get cold hands and feet? Does your hair fall out? Do you have thinning hair on your legs and your arms? It means you don't have to shave anymore as you get older. That's so nice. Potentially a thyroid issue. Do you have cracked heels is another one for thyroid. Yeah. Is your cholesterol number going up? It's a natural progression and it should go up as you age, but are the numbers out of balance? And is somebody really keeping an eye on that for you and worried for you? Number 10, are you hangry? Do you have cravings, especially middle of the afternoon where, oh my God, I had to eat the entire bag of chips. I couldn't stop myself. My will is nil. It's not a question of will. I just want to point out in that moment that you ate the bag of chips, you chose to survive in the moment and provide your body with fuel so that you could turn off the stress response. Yeah, feeding a body turns off the stress response, creates safety in the body. When we create safety, we reduce that burden of stress. And now you're better able to have the tools and the energy and what it takes to get through the day with, do I have a job on Monday? And getting through the day with the stress response that gets triggered, I don't know, every time your mom comes for a visit or your dad or your sister-in-law or brother-in-law or whatever, wherever you have friction with others. Do you want to better be able to handle those? Do you want to better be able to navigate being a human in 2024? Addressing your burden of stress with nutrition is how we do it. This is the foundation of everything I do. How many of these did you say yes to? If you even said yes to one, friend, we need to see you in the Good Food Network. So what are you going to do? Oh my God, Luka, that's me. What do I do? Okay, first things first, I'm going to put links below this video on YouTube. So click on show more or more. I can't remember what it says here. And then you're going to get a breakdown of different links and you can just click on them to go out. Look for link number 1. Link number 1 gets you a chance to chat with me one-on-one for 30 minutes. It's free. It won't cost you anything. In there, we really ascertain what's going on for you and would the Good Food Network be of good service to you? Which leads me to item number 2. Link number 2 is going to be to the Good Food Network directly. You can come join us in the Good Food Network without having to talk to me, but a lot of people aren't really clear on what it is, what it entails, what they would be doing. I've got a full page lineup of so much information. Many people don't want to read it, so I did an audio version up top. But if you're not sure and you'd rather talk to me face-to-face, choose link 1. If you're ready to join us, choose link 2. What are you going to get when you join the Good Food Network? You're going to get a bunch of things. There is a weekly session geared to our topic of the month. And we've got 5 happening in the month of March. One week, we actually have 2. The others, we only have 1. So the first week, we've got a session on hormonal imbalances and how that drives stress. The second week, we have a full class called Got Stress, Now What? And we have a second session called Stress and Magnesium. So we're going to be talking about the role of magnesium. In the third week, we talk about nutrient deficiencies and how these are a driver of stress. And then we're going to identify 3 of the major ones that I see in my clients and how to rectify that. Week 4, we talk about stress and its impact on vitamin C and why that's one of the big drivers of the stress response and how we can make up for it. You'll be able to identify, is this me in the session? What do I need to do for it? Those are the live sessions. In the Good Food Network, you have other stuff as well. There's a cooking class in there. There is a 3-hour class called The Burden of Stress. You have access to it for the entire month. We also have a class in there from the Real Food Reset, and we're actually helping you set up a pantry with the real food, how to build your pantry. So do you need some help with these things? We also talk about a good food challenge of the week, and it will always be geared to this concept of stress. So what of these pieces do you need help with? Do you need help to address the sleep question? Do you have a chronic disease? Are you the person who's jumpy when someone comes in the room? How many check marks did you say yes to? And how many of those do you want to hang on to for life? Oh, if you want to hang on to them for life, you don't need to join us. If you want to start seeing them in the back view, in the rear view mirror, come and join us in the Good Food Network, or at the very least, book in with me and we'll get you started. That's your first and second link. Third, it's still part of the Good Food Network, but because it's a standalone class, I offer it to anybody else who wants to join us. Everybody in the network gets to go to it. They get to attend as part of the deal, but other people can come just for that one class. So it's $25 for the class. It's $35 for the whole network. It's a really good deal in the network. Am I making that clear yet? The standalone class is called Got Stress, Now What? That's where if you've said yes to these things, maybe that's a really good place to start because all you've got space and time for is a 90-minute class with 3 to 5 things to do after the class and take yourself through a month of that. Well, if that's all the time you have time for and the only space you've got in your life right now that you are able to make space for, then come and join us for that one. There's going to be zero poo-pooing for you to choose that one over the network. You choose what works for you, and I offer options to everyone, and they are all affordable. Everything you'd get in the Good Food Network would come from having 6 meetings with me. You have to do the work yourself, and it's self-driven. That's the difference. That's why the cost is so much lower. And there is not the accountability piece. That's what's missing. But that's what you pay extra for. So, do you want to take this Got Stress Now What class? Well, we're doing it on a Wednesday morning, Wednesday, March 13th. The replay goes out to everyone and you'll have 2 weeks to watch it. And at the end of that 90-minute class, there's a whole handout with recipes. You get your list of to-do pieces and how to start addressing that. And that can be a good month to 3 months worth of work. Do you want to join us for that? Then go to link number 3 for Got Stress Now What? It's going to be just below here and join us, $25. That's it for Good Food and You. Now we're going to move into Histamine Haven things. So what I'm doing for the rest of the month, we're doing a free class at Histamine Haven as we do every month. And this month we're focusing on pain. And we're talking about the histamine and the mast cell piece to it. So it's a free class. Anybody can come and join, especially if you've ever been curious to understand how histamine plays a role in your symptoms potentially. We're focusing on pain, and if you have any kind of chronic pain, I think this would be a very good class for you. But even if you don't have a chronic pain issue, but you're wondering if you have histamine or mast cell issues, plan to join us at this class. That one takes place on Thursday, March 21st, and you can sign up for it at link number 4, just below here. There's a replay that goes out. You can access that for 1 week after. And last but not least, we are doing a cooking class for Histamine Haven. So we're really excited. It's our first one we're going to be offering. We're doing it live from my kitchen, where Tracy and I will be in tandem with some folks online who are going to be joining us from around the world, which is very exciting. And we're going to be setting all of that up in the next week or 2 to send out information about it. And if you're just now hearing about this for the first time, sorry, pals. We had it as part of our fundraiser where we had a campaign to raise some funds to help us pay some bills at Histamine Haven because we've been building a really big thing. And it's taken us a very long time to build it. And so part of our fundraiser was to offer these classes as a way to help us pay for this big thing that we're building. And I'll talk about that in next month, I hope. So we're doing that class sometime in March. We've already capped our registration, so we're done, but I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be doing some capsule freezer ideas and simplifying getting dinner on the table for those who have histamine and mast cell issues. So that's very exciting. So that's everything that's happening in terms of content that could be available to you for the month of March. Does any of this resonate? If it's a yes, go on, click on show more below and follow through and register, sign up for either free chat with me, the Good Food Network. Come and join us. Doors open as soon as you register, you get in. Maybe just take that Got Pain class. You'll get the Zoom link as soon as you register. Or, sorry, that was the Got Stress class, pardon me. Or number 4, the class where we'll be talking about pain. Look forward to seeing you there. I wanted to leave you with one last little morsel. I have not had any capacity in my life to make room for a mid-month missive where it is along the lines of my old back deck chats. So I wanted to give you something to think about today. So I've been running a group for a couple of years now on Tuesday nights that we've done for maybe 2 years now. And we always have such interesting discussions. And this week's discussion was about the full moon that we just had. And in traditional terms, in the North American indigenous way of looking at the cycles of the seasons, this latest moon is known as the sap moon. And if you pay attention for a hot second, you will know exactly what we're talking about. The sap that starts flowing in the trees. And of course, we're predominantly thinking about maple sap, maple tree sap. But there's also birch trees here in Alberta that you could tap at this time of year. And it's that start of flow that happens. And the start of flow that's happening in the natural world that is because of this transition of seasons. And as we were talking about the sap moon, we were talking about this one chapter in a book I name check all the time called Full Moon Feast, which is just such a great book. And the author, Jessica Prentice, does a really great deep dive into the history of sugar and the history of sugar and plantations and how it was used as a tool to really prioritize enslavement of people, and how there was so much hardship and heartache that came about in the production of these sugars, and the impact and the effects it had on communities, on entire communities, and all at the hands of somebody making a profit. Again, ask me how I feel about the state of the capitalistic world. Also, yeah. And so in this chapter, she also talks about what are the traditional ways that we would have used sugar. So I want to leave you with something to think about for this month, because I find these are conversations I have with clients so often. I find so often the message we're getting these days is sugar is going to kill you. Sugar is awful. Carbohydrates are awful. We should all go low carb. We should do a keto diet. We should do all these things. We should deprive ourselves. Well, okay, that's not what they're saying, but they're saying take this whole category of foods out. And I'm going to be honest, I'm sure in some instances where you're being followed by a functional medicine practitioner who can measure ketones and do all those other things, there's really good evidence, especially in the case of children who have seizure upon seizure upon seizure in their brains. Yes, there is very good evidence to show that there's a really great support for that. But we find ourselves in a time where we are self-flagellating ourselves with this notion of cutting out sugars and carbohydrates. In this season of the sap moon, I'm going to invite you to think about who are the people you came from and how would they have worked sweet into their meals. You can imagine it, you could do some research, or you can also just listen in because this is my favorite topic these days. But if you think of sugar in, for example, Thai cooking, it would have been worked into curries. It's one of the ingredients in a curry. You'll see it everywhere. It's a little bit. There's not a lot. There's usually a lot of coconut milk, sugar, and a bunch of other things. If you look to Japanese cooking, for example, teriyaki sauce. Teriyaki has that sour, the salty, and the sweet, balancing each other out in a teriyaki sauce. If you look to Vietnamese cooking, there is the balance of sour, salty, sweet, spicy, and umami and bitter, right? There's the balance of all those flavors. If you look to European traditions, where they would have had a lot of sugar, they would have worked it into a dessert potentially. But if you look at some of the traditional ways, they would have worked in really high fat foods to that sweet. So, for example, there's an old pudding that was almost like a, oh, what do you call those? Like an egg custard type pudding that also had bone marrow in it. Bone marrow is so deeply nourishing. And sugar was a part of what was added to the ingredient. So it was never by itself. Fast forward to 2024, how do we consume our sugar? I think a lot of us take a lot of it out because we think we're supposed to, because it's a sign that we're not virtuous enough if we can't live without sugar. First of all, do you know that sugar is a necessary ingredient? Carbohydrates are a needed ingredient for many, many different things. It is the main, my friend Stephanie said it this week. She said it's the main currency of being human because you need carbohydrates for the brain to work, the eyes to work, your liver to work, your heart to pump, your muscles to move. You need carbohydrates to function. You need carbohydrates to transfer T4 into T3 to which are your thyroid hormones. You need it for hormones. You need it to sleep properly. You need carbohydrates for a lot of important things in the body. And telling someone to take carbohydrates out sets them up as a disadvantage that actually spurs that burden of stress even more. Especially if you are a peri or postmenopausal female body that is not 20-year-old and male, where they can do intermittent fasting and cut out carbs, and they can handle it much better. Female bodies have a much harder time. And a lot of my clients that I see have tried it at some point and felt really good for a few weeks. And then a bunch of stuff started to come back, or a few months down the road. It was never long-term sustainable, nor was it supportive to the body. And in fact, created more deficiencies in a body, which then drove even higher burden of stress. So to tie in burden of stress and this the moon of the sap moon, maple syrup moon, I'm going to call it, because I'm so French Canadian, and we had la cabane à sucre growing up. It was a very traditional French Canadian thing. What does sugar mean to you, and how do you have it, and how did the people before you have it? I'm not saying this is carte blanche for going out and eating a whole bag of sugar, but why are we taking sugar out? What does sugar mean to us? What does sugar represent culturally? What does sugar bring to the table? It was a very traditional food for my people who lived in l'Acadie, which is now known as Nova Scotia, for hundreds of years. They had a lot of maple sap, and they learned the trade of how to winnow down the sap from maple trees from the indigenous Mi'kmaq of the region, of whom I also am a descendant of, in smaller portion, but still part of my history and my heritage. In different parts of the world, you would have had honey, or you would have had sorghum syrup, or you would have had coconut sugar, or you would have had palm sugar, or you would have had, different types of things. Who are the people you come from? How did they added sweet to their life? And why do we think it's virtuous to take out what sugar means? Sugar, for us, is what comes out when we're celebrating together as a family. We don't have sugar on a super regular basis, but we have it when we gather together. We have it when we have a festival to celebrate, like Easter or Christmas or New Year's Eve or Valentine's Day. We give chocolates to our family. What does sugar mean to you, and why do we need to take it out? And what if we just did closer to what our ancestors did, and then we enjoyed it? What kind of permission would that give the rest of our bodies to let go of some of this burden of stress? Because the secret is carbohydrates actually help you turn off the burden of stress if you get that right amount in that sweet spot. Yeah. So think about that, my friends. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry if I've rambled so much, but also these are things I think about, and I can't do anything on social media anymore. I've been saying that for 2 years. Here you go. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you again. Salut. À bientôt.